Imagine, if you will, the story of a person who arrived in a distant kingdom with nothing but a small suitcase and a heart full of hope. Picture them working two different jobs under the hot sun and the cold moon, barely sleeping so they could learn the local language at night. Imagine them sitting by a dim lamp, memorizing the ancient laws and the names of the great leaders of the past until they could say them in their sleep. Finally, the day comes. They stand in a grand hall, raise their right hand and swear a holy oath to the crown. A beautiful paper is placed in their hands, officially naming them a citizen of the land. They are safe. They belong. This was 20 years ago. But then one chilly morning last month, a heavy envelope arrives. It's from the High Council's Hall of Justice. It says the royal guards are looking back at the old papers from decades ago. It says there is a tiny question about one single word written on a form back when they were young and scared. They don't even remember the form. They don't remember the pen they used or the chair they sat in. But the letter says because of that one word, the kingdom might try to take away their crown of citizenship. This story isn't about one specific person you can go and meet today. Instead, think of it like a legend built from many different whispers heard in the marketplace and tales told by the kingdom's scribes. It is a dramatized look at what happens when the rules of a great land begin to shift like sand. In this fictional world we are exploring, the governors of the realm have told their officers to find more and more people to question. For a long time, the kingdom was very quiet. For nearly 30 years, they only questioned about 11 people a year, usually only the worst villains who had hidden terrible secrets. But in this story, starting in the year 2026, the leaders have set a new goal. They want their officers to find hundreds of people every single month to bring before the royal judges. If they reach this goal, the number of people facing the loss of their status could grow to be 100 times bigger than it ever was before. If you or someone you love lives in a land like this, you need to know how the story works. You need to understand the rules of the game so you can keep your home safe. This is a tale about protection, about knowing the law, and about standing tall when the wind starts to blow. Welcome back to our gathering of stories. I am your guide, and this is where we come to understand the complicated dances of the world's borders. If you are joining our circle for the first time, make sure to stay close because the news in this imaginary version of 2026 is moving faster than a galloping horse. I want you to have your shield ready before the battle begins, not after. In our story today, I'm going to show you what these new rules look like. I'll explain who the royal guards are really looking for, and it's a much smaller group than the scary rumors might suggest. We'll talk about what the kingdom has to prove in front of a judge, because those rules are like a strong fortress. And at the end, I will give you a secret map, a plan with specific steps you can take right now to make sure your own treasure chest of papers is locked tight. To understand what's happening in this fictional 2026, we have to look back at the history of this imaginary land. The power to take away citizenship has existed for over 100 years. But for most of that time, it was a sleeping giant. It was only used for people who had done truly awful things, like ancient war criminals, or people who had tricked the king in a very big way. The royal judges always said that being a citizen was a precious right. They believed it wasn't something the government could just snatch away because they felt like it. It was like a golden bond that shouldn't be broken easily. But then, the story changes. In the winter of 2025, a new scroll was sent out to all the offices in the land. The scribes reported that this scroll told the officers they must find 100 to 200 cases every month to send to the high lawyers. To do this, they moved their workers around and started digging through old dusty basements filled with files. They aren't making new laws, but they are looking at very old ones with a magnifying glass. Some people who used to work for the king are worried. They say that when you force officers to meet a quota or a set number, you stop looking for justice and start looking for mistakes. They say citizenship is too important to be treated like a game of numbers. Here is the most important part of the drama. Even if the officers find 200 people a month to complain about, they can't just take the citizenship away themselves. They have to go to a grand court. They have to stand in front of a judge who wears a black robe and doesn't take orders from the king's officers. The quota is just for referring or pointing a finger. It isn't a guaranteed win in court. Many of these cases might take years. Many might fail. But the real problem is the worry it causes. For millions of people, that worry is the heaviest burden of all. Let's break this tale down into 4 chapters so you can really see the picture. First, we'll talk about what this process actually is. Second, we'll see who they are really chasing. Third, we'll look at the rules of the court. And fourth, we'll see what happens if someone actually loses. In the first chapter, we learn that there are 2 ways this happens. One is through a big lawsuit, and the other is after a person is found guilty of a crime. We are mostly talking about the lawsuit. This is the most vital thing to remember. The immigration office cannot take your status away. They can ask questions, they can call you to a meeting, and they can look at your files, but they do not have the power to break the bond. Only a high judge can do that. Your citizenship isn't going to just vanish in the mail like a lost letter. It would take a long, fair fight in a real courtroom with lawyers and evidence. Now, who are they actually chasing in this story? The secret scrolls say they are looking for 3 types of people. The first group is people who hid a serious criminal past when they first asked to join the kingdom. If someone was a dangerous person and didn't tell the truth about it on their forms, the guards want to know. The second group is people who committed big money crimes, like stealing from the royal treasury or tricking people during a great sickness. They argue that if you steal from the land, you aren't showing good character. The third group is people tied to scary groups or gangs who didn't mention it when they signed their papers. Do you notice what is missing from that list? Simple mistakes on taxes are not there. Using the wrong word on a form or having a small mistake in an address from 20 years ago isn't there. Your political ideas, who you marry, or what language you speak at the dinner table, none of those things are on the wanted list. If a person was honest when they applied and has lived a good, quiet life since then, the chance of the kingdom coming after them is very, very low. The system isn't really built to hunt ordinary families. To see what this looks like, we can look at some of the famous cases from our story's version of 2026. One was about a man who ran a multi-million-dollar tax trick. Another was about someone who had done terrible things during a war in a far-off country. A third was about a person who had hurt children and hidden it. These are the stories the government likes to tell. They aren't stories about a father who forgot to pay a parking ticket or a mother who moved houses and forgot to write down the date. However, lawyers in our story warn that as the pressure to find more people grows, the officers might start looking at smaller mistakes. That's why we have to be ready. In the 3rd chapter, we look at what the government has to prove. This is where the law protects the people. In this fictional world, the High Court once ruled that the government can't just take away citizenship for any little lie. They have to prove 2 big things. First, that the person definitely said something that wasn't true. Second, that the lie actually mattered. This is called being material. It means that if the person had told the truth, the kingdom would have said no to their citizenship back then. If you forgot the name of your high school or had a tiny gap in your work history from a long time ago, that doesn't usually matter. It wouldn't have changed the answer. Also, the government has to have clear and convincing proof. That is a very high mountain to climb. It's not like a regular argument. It's a serious battle where the person gets to have their own lawyer, show their own evidence, and fight back. What happens if the government actually wins the battle? If a judge signs the paper to take away the citizenship, the person doesn't usually just disappear. In most cases, they go back to being what they were before, like a permanent resident or a green card holder. But losing citizenship is a heavy loss. You lose the right to vote for the leaders of the land. You can't work certain special jobs. You might not be able to help your family members move to the kingdom as easily. And most importantly, you lose your shield. As a citizen, you can't be sent away. As a resident, you can. That is why the process itself feels like a punishment. Every time the guards look at a file, they might find something else to use against a person. So what should you do in this story? Here is the map for your protection. Follow these 6 steps to keep your home safe. Step 1. Ask for your secret file. In this land, every immigrant has a file that contains every paper they ever signed. You have a right to see it. There is a special form you can use to ask the government to send you a copy. It takes a few months to arrive, so start today. If you have your own copy, you know exactly what the guards are looking at. Step 2. Find your original application form. This is the one you filled out years ago. Read it very carefully. Look at every date, every address, and every answer. Check it with your own eyes tonight. If you don't have a copy, it will be in that secret file we talked about. Look for anything that might be wrong, even if it seems small. You aren't doing this to get in trouble. You're doing it so you aren't surprised later. Step 3. If you find something that makes you worry, talk to a wise legal guide. You need an immigration lawyer who knows how to fight in the high courts. Not every lawyer knows how to do this. Find a specialist who can help you build your shield before anyone ever knocks on your door. It's better to be ready early than to scramble late. Step 4. Keep all your papers. Save your tax records, your work papers, your rent receipts, and your bills. In this world, the government fights with paper, and you must fight with paper too. Never throw away anything that proves who you are and how you have lived. Step 5. Be very careful when talking to the kingdom's officers. If you are traveling or if someone stops you, you have the right to stay silent and wait for your lawyer. You don't have to sign anything you don't understand. Many people think they can just talk their way out of a problem, but in this story, talking too much usually makes the problem bigger. Step 6. Write down the emergency numbers. There are groups of people whose only job is to help protect citizens' rights. Keep their numbers in your pocket or on your phone. Give them to your family. If the guards ever send you a letter, do not try to fix it yourself. Call a lawyer immediately. Everything you say to the government can be used to try and take your crown away. As we reach the end of this tale, I want to tell you something that the loud news often forgets. You earned your place in this kingdom. You didn't just wake up one day with that paper in your hand. You worked for it. You studied for it. You paid for it with your time and your effort. You stood in that grand room and promised to protect the land. That promise was real. That moment was one of the biggest moments of your life. That bond doesn't just break because someone wrote a new memo in a cold office. The laws of this land were built to be strong. For over 50 years, the highest judges have said that a citizenship that is easy to take away isn't really citizenship at all. They built high walls to protect you. Those walls are still standing in 2026. The new goal for the officers is just a policy, a choice they made, but the law and the Constitution are much bigger than any policy. So yes, keep your eyes open. Yes, get your papers ready. Yes, talk to a lawyer if you are worried. But do not let fear live in your house. Fear is what they want you to feel, but being prepared is how you win. You are a part of this land. You should act like it, know your rights like it, and defend your home like it. Before you go, I want to hear from you. How long has it been since you became a citizen of your land? When was the last time you looked at the old forms you signed? I want to know how many of you still have those papers tucked away in a drawer, and how many of you are going to go look for them tonight. Your stories help me decide what our next lesson should be. I'm planning to tell you exactly what to do if a letter from the High Council actually arrives at your door. Share this story with your friends and neighbors. Not because you want to scare them, but because you want them to be ready. The only people who get hurt by these changes are the ones who don't know what's happening until it's too late. Make sure to stay tuned for our next update, because the world is changing fast, and knowledge is the best armor you can wear. One last thing to remember, this story was told to help you learn and think. I am a storyteller, not your personal lawyer. The rules of the world change very quickly, and every person's life is different. If you think this story is happening to you in real life, please go find a real licensed lawyer to help you. Thank you for listening. Keep your head held high, and I will see you in the next chapter. The weight of a single piece of paper can feel like a mountain when the wind starts to howl. But remember, a mountain doesn't move just because the wind wants it to. It stays still because its roots go deep into the earth. Your roots in this land are deep, too. You have built a life here. You have friends, you have family, and you have contributed to the world around you. Those things matter. When you look at your citizenship certificate, don't just see a piece of paper. See the years of hard work it represents. See the long nights of studying. See the oath you took with a clear voice and a steady heart. In this dramatized tale of 2026, we see a world where numbers and quotas try to overshadow human lives. But human lives are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. They are stories of courage, struggle, and triumph. When the officers in our story look through those old files, they aren't just looking at ink on a page. They are looking at the history of a person who chose this land as their home. That choice is powerful. It is a choice that the law was designed to honor and protect. If the high lawyers of the kingdom decide to bring a case against someone, they are stepping into a ring where the rules are very strict. They have to play fair. They have to show their cards. And most importantly, they have to face a judge who values the truth above all else. In our fictional world, the courts are the great balance. They ensure that the power of the governors is not used to hurt innocent people. This is why having a good legal guide is so important. They are the ones who know how to speak the language of the court and how to point out when the government is being unfair. Think about the steps we discussed. Getting your A file is like getting a copy of the kingdom's secret map. It shows you the paths they might take. Reading your old N400 form is like checking your armor for any weak spots. Consulting a lawyer is like hiring a master blacksmith to reinforce that armor. Keeping your papers is like building a sturdy wall around your home. Every action you take is a way of saying, I belong here, and I will not be moved. It is also helpful to talk to your community. Sometimes when we are scared, we feel like we are all alone in a dark forest. But when we talk to our neighbors, we realize that many people are feeling the same way. We can share information, we can support each other, and we can stand together. Strength often comes in numbers. When a group of people knows their rights and stands up for them, it becomes much harder for anyone to push them around. In this story, the year 2026 is a time of testing. It is a time when the strength of the land's promises is being checked. But every test is an opportunity to show how strong you really are. By being informed, by being prepared, and by staying calm, you are showing that you are a true citizen of the land, no matter what a memo might say. You are the heart and soul of the kingdom. You are the ones who make it grow and flourish. As we close this chapter, take a deep breath. Look around your home. Look at the life you have built. That life is real. That life is valuable. And that life is worth protecting. Don't let the shadows of a fictional quota dim the light of your accomplishments. Stay vigilant, stay educated, and most of all, stay proud. You have walked a long road to get here, and you have every right to keep walking forward. I will be here to guide you through the next part of the story, whatever it may be. We will look at more cases, we will dive deeper into the laws, and we will continue to build our map of protection. Until then, keep your documents safe, keep your lawyers close, and keep your spirits high. The story of your life in this land is still being written, and you are the one holding the pen. Make it a story of strength, resilience, and unshakable hope. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. Together, we will navigate the changing tides and ensure that the promise of citizenship remains as bright and as certain as the morning sun. Remember, the goal of this dramatized exploration is to empower you. Information is the greatest tool we have. When we understand the why and the how behind the news, it becomes much less frightening. We can move from a place of fear to a place of action. We can transform our anxiety into a plan. And a plan is the first step toward peace of mind. So tonight, when the house is quiet, take a moment to reflect. Think about your journey. Think about your rights. And know that you have the power to protect your future. The kingdom is vast. The laws are many. But your place within it is yours by right, by oath, and by law. Stand tall, American citizen. Your story is far from over, and you have a whole community standing right beside you.